friends. So this is our first Excel project for the year, and in this we're going to be looking at marginal and conditional distributions, as well as how to create graphs and doing all of this in Excel. So as we can see here, I have some data that I've made up about students' math classes that they're taking this year, what their favorite genre of music is, what their favorite eye color is. So we're only going to be looking at two of these variables today. And the ones we're going to be looking at are what math class they're taking versus their eye color. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is populate this table right here by figuring out and counting how many stats students have blue eyes, brown eyes, hazel eyes, how many calc students have blue eyes, brown eyes, hazel eyes, and then we'll look at some marginal distributions as well as some conditional distributions. So for determining if and counting the number of students who are taking a stat class and have blue eyes, we're going to use a formula, which anytime we're asking Excel to calculate something for us, we're always going to put this equal sign. And the one we'll be using is called COUNTIFs. So if you see here, we're going to be using this one right here that says COUNTIFs. Okay. The criteria range we're going to be looking at, well, let's choose our stats students first. So my data is in this tab down here. And we are going to choose all of my class data. So I've highlighted all of that. You can see those kind of marching ants around there. That shows that I have chosen this data. Now, when I make this table, I'm going to want to make sure, so basically Excel is a really powerful thing that's going to allow me to calculate this. I'm going to write the formula once, and then it's going to calculate everything for us. But there's an important thing that we need to do here, and that's to make sure that, hey, when I'm choosing classes, I only want to be choosing from this column right here. So I'm going to lock the column, and the way you lock the column in Excel is by putting a dollar sign in front of it. So I'm going to put a dollar sign here. I'm going to put a dollar sign here. And then I also want to make sure that I'm selecting just from this data. So I'm going to lock the rows as well by putting dollar signs in front of those values too. Okay? So that means whenever I'm selecting classes, I just want to be choosing from this data here. And I'll press comma. Now it asks for criteria number 1. Okay, so what's my first criteria? Well, I have the name right here. I want to see how many kids there are in this row who are taking a stats class. But because that's not the only piece of data that I want, and again, we are going to lock this, but actually we're only going to lock this column. The reason why is because when I move down here, I want the name to change to calc. I want the row to change, but not the column. So I'm going to lock, using my dollar sign, this column right here. So when I'm choosing names of classes, I don't want to stray from this column, but I do want to stray from this row, right? Not all of my students are going to be stat students. I'm not always looking for stat students. I'm also going to be looking for calc. So I want the name to change, the row to change, but not the column. Comma. Now, what's our second criteria? Well, our second criteria is going to be our eye color. So if we go back to data and choose our eye colors here, again, we want to choose these eye colors here. Again, when choosing eye color, I don't want to stray from this data at all, so let's lock in our row and our column here. And what do we want the eye color to be? Oops, forgot to put a comma. What do we want my eye color to be? Well, I want it to be blue. And in this case, what do I want to lock? Well, I want the column to be able to jump, right? I want to be able to quickly go to brown and quickly go to hazel, but I don't want this row to change at all, right? All of my eye color names are up here in row 3. So I'm going to lock the column, or lock the row, I should say. Right? No other arguments. I'm just looking at class of statistics, eye color of blue. We press enter and it automatically counts, hey, there are 6 stat students with blue eye colors, right? 6 stat students with blue eye colors. I'm going to change this second one to a capital S just to be safe. Okay. 6 stat students with blue eye color. Now here's where the power of Excel and the power of those dollar signs are really going to come in. Okay, I want to count how many calc students had blue eyes. I'm going to put that count here. And I could write all of this out again and then do that 4 more times after that, but that seems kind of not fun, right? What Excel is going to allow us to do is if we go down here to the bottom right, okay, if we go down here to the bottom right of the cell, you'll see that my cross changes to a black cross here. So what I'm going to do is click and drag down, and it's automatically going to calculate, and let's make sure. I want the data from A1 to A53, that looks good, such that this data is from C5, so is calc students, and I want to look at the data from C1 to C53 and count the number of individuals who have D3 blue eyes. Right? That's what this means, D3 blue eyes. So it automatically counted that, and so I have a total of 8 calc students with blue eyes. Now, we can actually create the rest of this table by highlighting these 2 cells, and again, going to that bottom right, over here, and clicking and dragging to fill in the table. You'll see that it counts that we have 6 stat students with brown eyes, 25 calc students with brown eyes, 2 stat students with hazel eyes, and 5 calc students with hazel eyes. And again, that's the power of those dollar signs, which you need to do a little thinking about, and the power of Excel allowing us to do this. So now let's calculate our totals. So I've always told you that, hey, let's calculate, whenever you get a two-way table, first thing you should probably do is calculate totals for your rows and your columns. So we're going to do that using a function. Again, we want Excel to calculate stuff for us, and I know you could probably do this in all 3 of these in your head, but we're going to let Excel do the work so that if we collect more data, or if we change our data, if we figure out, oh wait, I put something in wrong, Excel will automatically calculate all of this for us. So we're going to use the sum function. And what we're going to do with the sum function is highlight any cells that we want to add together. In this case, we want to highlight these 2 cells and sum them together. And when I sum those 2 cells together, I should get 14, and hey, what do you know, I do get 14. Sorry about that, almost time for class. We're going to do the same, we're going to use the same technique here to calculate the sum for each of these. I'm going to highlight this, drag it across, and we automatically calculate, okay, there were 14 blue-eyed individuals, 31 brown-eyed individuals, and 7 hazel-eyed individuals. Now let's calculate the total number of statistics students, calc students, and the total number of students. So again, we'll use our sum, highlight the cells we want to sum, total of 14 statistics students, and then click and drag that bottom right corner, and we find that there are 38 total calc students and 52 students overall. Now, to calculate our marginal distribution, well, in this case, we're going to calculate the marginal distribution of statistics students to all students. So I'm going to press equals, and I want to take this data right here, G4, and I want to divide it by 52. But again, I don't want that 52 to change. That denominator is going to remain the same for all of my marginal distributions. The denominator is going to stay the same for all of my marginal distributions. So I'm going to use that $ again, and actually I'm going to click the cell I want to divide by, G6, and I'm going to put a $ in front of the row, or the column I should say, and a $ in front of the row. And we find that about 26.9% of my students were stat students. Now we can click and drag. We find that, in fact, about 73.1% are calc students. Yay, those add up to 100%. We'll do the same thing down here, equals, and I want to take this value right here and divide it by this value right here, but I don't want that one to change, so we'll do $, $ to lock in that cell. We find that almost 27% of students had blue eyes. Now let's calculate our brown and hazel marginal distributions. Almost 60% have brown eyes, and about 13.5% had hazel eyes. So those are our marginal distributions. Stay tuned for the next video where we'll talk about how to calculate conditional probabilities and create a segmented bar graph.